Hi, welcome to another live stream of Fix Your Gut. My name is Jason Hooper, and we're here with John Brissom for another Q&A.
Hey everybody, hope you're doing well.
Um, so for this week, for the Unfair Advantage giveaway, we are going to have to postpone it a little bit because Upgraded Self is going through a transition. They have a new storefront. You might have checked it out on the new website. And long story short, it's going to be a little bit before they resolve some things. They're just getting the system broken in and everything. So if we can't get it out this week, we're going to do 2 drawings next week. So everybody's going to get a shot at getting some Unfair Advantage. Please set your profiles to so where I could contact you. If you're set to private, it's really hard for me to figure out who you are. And so, yeah, and check your Gmail account, because that's the only way I can get in touch with you. You'd be surprised at the number of people I try to contact and I can't get a hold of them. Anyway, so if I can't get a hold of you, I just do another random number and go on to the next person.
Or you take a whole box of it, because it gives you an unfair advantage.
Yeah, like if nobody claims their prize, then I just take the whole box in one afternoon, and I just jump over my house.
You Hulk rage for a couple hours and just do crazy, amazing things, and then you have the most restful deep sleep you've ever had in your life because it gives you the unfair advantage. So
yeah, they called the police on me many times, but it's okay because I was like, it's all right, it's legal, unfair advantage, it's totally legal, try some. And so they tried some, and they went crazy and shot half the town. All right. So anyway, had some weird stuff happen this week. I know, John, your daughter got chicken pox.
Yeah, she did. The only sickness that she's had the whole entire time since she's been born. And she got it because my son recently had gotten vaccinated. His last vaccination shot that he needed, which was varicella, to attend school in the state of North Carolina, the great state of North Carolina. So yeah, she caught a relatively mild case, should I say. But yeah, it did occur more than likely from him shedding the live virus, because it is an attenuated vaccination.
Yeah, that's unusual. I mean, that doesn't happen very often.
No, it's very rare, but it can occur. Now, why it happened to her when she has a healthy immune system, she's still being breastfed at 1 year and 2 months old, off and on. I don't know. She hasn't been sick before. It's news to me, but anything can happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, vaccinations are definitely a hot topic, and we just have these like extreme viewpoints, I think, and instead of like the middle ground. So I have a vaccination protocol, and maybe we should post it on Fix Your Gut. I don't know, or come up with
And we'll talk about vaccinations one day on one of our streams.
Yeah.
The pros and the cons, and you have to weigh them. I was against my son getting the varicella vaccination, but it was still required by North Carolina. And
Wow,
I could have done religious exemption.
I thought they did away with the religious exemption.
No, it's still valuable. They're fighting to do away with it. But they make you jump through even more hurdles now to get it completed, to register for school. So I just went ahead and got the second dose that he needed, and spaced him out. I don't think that, some vaccinations that are currently used need to be used, like polio, for example, or Gardasil. They don't do very much. But I do think that there are other vaccinations that are important. And most people say vaccinations do not work, but we know they do, at least to some degree. Because trust me, if you got bitten by a rabid animal that you know is rabid, I'm pretty sure you want the rabies, live attenuated vaccination, as long with the antibodies too, to save your life.
Like if you're running around outside in your backyard and at night, and it's like, what's that noise? And you go outside, and then a raccoon runs up and bits your ankle, and pest control comes out and they capture the raccoon, and they euthanize it, and they look in its brain, and they do a biopsy, and sure enough, raccoon has rabies. And I think even the most staunch anti-vaccine people are going to be like, give me the shot. And that's a painful shot too. But I don't know, like on one side of the camp, you have like Jenny McCarthy and like very unscientific approach to it. And then on the other side of the camp, you have like these authoritative dictators like
all vaccinations
like,
are safe.
Yeah, we
you
need
must
to
get them all.
Well, they're not really. I don't know if they're saying they're safe, but
Some
like
most say most say they're safe. They go, they're safe.
Yeah,
you know.
But they're saying like everybody's required to get all vaccines. It's for the good of the nation and for everybody. But anyway, we'll do a show on it at some later point. But yeah, I mean, there are unexpected. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say unexpected, but there are weird stuff. There's bad stuff that happens as a result of vaccines. Like for instance, your daughter got chickenpox from your son after he had just gotten his inoculation for it, which is kind of messed up. So that stinks.
Yeah,
but anyway,
but it can't happen with anything, you know.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's one of the ones where, you know, with my kids, I'm like, man, should I do this one or not? But
I know. We'll discuss the problems of like DTaP, for example, of them using bacterial endotoxins as a form of vaccination.
Yeah. Well, it's almost back to school time for me. My day job is as a teacher, so I start up in a couple weeks, and the drama's already going strong in in the school.
That's a bad pun. That's a bad pun. It's not something to laugh at.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, I mean, you know, there's always stuff going on, and I don't know, I was dealing with a bunch of stuff today. There was a really unfortunate incident that happened, and the district's got us on hush. We're not supposed to talk about it, but it's not good. And I hope that it turns out to be a misunderstanding and that everybody's okay. But anyway, the first, we're going to do a Q&A today. The first question is, any updates from Hooper's AO-biome experiment / experience? So yeah, I can give a little update about what's going on. AO Plus, they sent us a box, a 1 month supply, and it turns out that this ends up a lot. I mean, I'm using it as described. You're supposed to spray 6 to 8 sprays twice daily, and I'm still not finished with the protocol. I mean, I'm getting way more sprays than, I don't know, if I'm not like dispensing it hard enough or something to get everything to come out, but like I shake
gripping action
and I spray it. Yeah, well, maybe my grip technique is not, maybe I should grip with the 4 fingers like this.
Maybe.
Grip this way. I don't know. Why doesn't my pinky want to grip?
I don't know.
I don't know.
MS.
Yeah, no, not anyway, it's lasting a long time, which I guess is a plus. I guess that's the plus in AO Plus, comes from long lasting.
It's not a bad thing, you know. Most products you go through them, so.
Yeah, that's true.
I know, Jason, you did report that you were having some rashes developing from the microbiome shift.
Yeah, I was maybe going to leave that out, but you know, since you brought it up,
we have to be honest.
Yeah, the thing is, when you spray it on your skin, it's wet, right? And so even if you miss large areas, it's wet, and so you know, having wet skin, and I don't want to like spray it on me and then you know, pat it dry, because that would like wick away the bacteria I'm trying to put on my skin. So, you know, like I just spray it on before bed, and then I go to bed, and I think what's happened, you know, is like from the moisture and stuff, it's allowed, you know, it's allowed overgrowth and stuff. And so, yeah, I've had a couple of rashes, but I treated them with coconut oil, and that seemed to knock it out pretty fast. So it seemed to be
pretty easy to deal with.
Yeah. So that wasn't fun. I don't know if that's typical of use.
But it was in your experience, you know. I mean, it is always possible for it to happen through a microbiome shift.
You know, in wrestling, they always said, like, okay, if you get ringworm, it's because you're not showering enough or whatever, and you're just not maintaining good enough hygiene. And, you know, people that didn't shower right after their workouts were more prone to getting ringworm. And I don't know if that, you know, that's very anecdotal. I don't know if they've done a study on that or whatever, but I'm not wrestling right now, but I do work out, and sweat after you work out. So I don't know if that's what's causing it or what, but that wasn't fun.
Let's get to the crux. Did it work as far as, did you smell? Did you smell bad?
Nobody has told me that I smell bad. I'm still like, if I think I'm starting to smell a little bit, like if I even detect anything, because I mean, who wants to smell, right? Nobody.
Yeah, no one wants to smell bad.
That's a good way. That's a good way to have no friends. Nobody wants to hang around.
You don't want to be the stinky teacher in school.
No. Well, I mean, one of the reasons why I did this over the summer is because I don't have to go in.
That is true.
To school.
Old man Hooper, he smells bad.
Yeah. So, yeah. So nobody complained. My wife, she's super pregnant. She's like almost 9 months pregnant, and during pregnancy you usually get heightened smells and
super sniffer.
Yeah, and so she says she can't smell anything, so I guess that's okay. But I mean, I'm not really sure if that is. They don't really make any claims on here about that. They don't say like you won't smell. They just say that it's nitrogen oxidizing bacteria. They're not making any medical claims on this product at all. They're just saying we're sending you nitrosomonas in a tube to spray on yourself. That's all they're saying at this point. They also on their site have 100% money back guarantee. So if you use a month's worth and you tell them you didn't like it, they'll refund your $99 or whatever it costs. So it's pretty much risk-free in that regard. And Dr. Weiss said that he gets very little returns, or like very little complaints where they actually have to issue refunds. So that's been interesting.
So you're not done, so you still can't give it a yay or nay.
Well, I haven't done the ubiome swab yet to see how it's doing, to see if they can detect it or not. I'm not going to do PCR because, PCR is not 100% accurate anyway, and it's very expensive. So I'm not going to do PCR. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's definitely cutting edge, and just like in the electronic technologies, if you're going to be on the cutting edge, you might bleed. So they're doing clinical studies right now, and they're doing, and I guess they're going to release them at some point to try to show what this stuff does. But I think that the philosophy behind hygiene that they're putting out there is the most valuable part of this, where they're saying, watch the types of soaps that you use, watch the type of cleaners that you use, because a lot of them contain a lot of hexane. A lot of shampoos contain xenoestrogens.
Yeah.
A lot of xenoestrogen. I mean, people are worried about BPA. They're like, oh, don't drink out of anything with plastic or any of the the bisphenol isomers or anything. Like, don't even touch plastic. It's crazy. But they're also putting shampoos in their hair that have way more xenoestrogens and way more bioavailable. So it's
a lot of triclosan antibacterial products, even in shampoos and body washes. Got to knock that bacterial down.
Yeah, and just the idea that the concept of modern hygiene, where we strip everything away, like we sterilize everything, and we strip off all of our oils, but then we have to reapply the oils because we're dry all of a sudden. So it's like, okay, I stripped all the oils from my hair through shampooing. Now I have to use a conditioner. Okay, well, why is that not a racket? And then, like, okay, so then I strip off all the oils. I wash my skin. Oh, now my skin's dry, so I need a moisturizer. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. I'd like to get more data on it for sure. I think it's a very good I mean, actually, what I'm interested the most about with Dr. Weiss is his line of, I wouldn't really say soaps, but his line of cleaners that he's coming out with. And he's already come out with one that's based on time. And basically he's looking at nature. He's looking at like, okay, these are, this is how nature deals with this problem. And he looks at time.
Yeah, thyme would work very well. Thyme would be very strong too, though.
Yeah, it is very strong, but it's diluted. I mean, he's not spraying.
Well, I know, but it's still, because a lot of your natural, products are going to have thymol in it. It's going to be, the eugenol is what has the antibacterial property of thyme oil.
Right.
So it does kill 99% of bacteria, but when you're using this stuff, you don't want to use it everywhere. You only want to use it like on your cutting board when you're.
Well, yeah, and like your hands, because your hands go lots of places that other parts of your body don't go.
Yeah, but studies of your hands show that just normal soap and water is effective.
It's not effective?
It is effective. Just normal soap and water.
Yeah, but what Dr. Weiss is saying is like, don't use traditional soaps because they have.
But wouldn't thymol be strong? Because thymol itself kills 99% of bacteria generally on contact, even when it's diluted in the natural, like antibacterial, like kitchen soaps and kitchen cleaners and stuff like that. So how diluted are we talking about here? That would be a good question that maybe we can shoot them when the product launches. I'm interested in it, obviously, but I still want to know.
He's also working on developing some like bath products to where it doesn't, it cleans you, but it leaves a lot of the bacteria present, especially the nitrosomonas. I'm interested in seeing how he's gonna do that. That's fascinating to me. I think that's where the technology should be headed, is not necessarily the probiotic side of it, but like, how do we clean ourselves without disrupting the microbiome? I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, I am too.
I think that's really cool.
Couldn't most people just, if they have chlorine or chloramines, to try to get rid of them in their bath water, or when they take a shower, and just don't use scalding hot water, use lukewarm water? That'd probably be the best way for someone to clean themselves, and maybe use some of the soaps that he might be developing.
Yeah, he's when I interviewed him, I think it was episode 2 or something.
It was a good interview.
Yeah, I mean, we're new at this, obviously. That was the first interview I've ever done.
It was still good though.
But hopefully we'll do better. We're interviewing Jack Cruz on Saturday morning
at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can't wait. It's going to be great.
And hopefully my interviewing skills will improve by then. I've interviewed a few other people since then, and I think I'm getting better at it. But obviously you don't just step into something and all of a sudden you're a genius. It takes practice, and so we're going to get some more practice with Dr. Cruz. But Dr. Cruz, like, I think that you could be even a terrible interviewer, and his interviews are still going to be interesting because
he's got a very strong persona.
He's very charismatic, and he's very, everything he says is superlative, like it's the best thing ever, space age, whatever. So, I could go in there and absolutely fall on my face, and he'll be entertaining to watch anyway. But anyway, okay, so I think we pretty much answered that question, I guess. A little update on that, and that's where I am, and I'm looking to get more data, and I'm going to do a blog about it on the Fix Your Gut site whenever I'm finished with everything. Okay, the next question. When I ask questions, I don't ever like say who asked the question. Like every other Q&A podcast, they're like, Cheeky Pants 25 from,
I think we need to start doing that.
The District of Columbia asks, do you think we do? Nobody's complained about it so far.
Leave comments and see if you guys want us to do that.
Well, the thing is, like a lot of these, I mean, some of them, yeah, I can pronounce, but a lot of them are like crazy. I can't pronounce, like, it's.
You'll probably do better. You probably do better at it than me. I'm with my southern accent.
I really liked it on the Bulletproof podcast where they did that Q&A once upon a time, and it was back when your username was Ron Swanson.
Yeah.
And you asked a question or something, and they're like, Ron Swanson asks blah blah blah.
Wow, I never watched that podcast. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow, I need to go back and watch it then. I don't even remember what my question was.
It's like over 2 years old. It was back when Alexis Bright was on the show.
Oh man, I need to go back and look at that. That's freaking hilarious.
Yeah, that was a sad day when Alexis left.
Yeah, she was very good.
She was super cool. I really like Alexis. Well, she still is super cool. She's not dead. She's just
She was a very important. She's very good for what she did for Bulletproof.
Oh yeah, super sharp. Okay, so anyway, the next question, I didn't write down who it is, but I mean, I don't know. Let's just say Joe Bob asks about olive oil, which has a 3-to-1 omega-3 to 6 ratio.
No, 13-to-1, not 3-to-1.
Sorry, I misread that. Does this mean that olive oil is not really a health fat because of the high omega-6? Will eating mega doses of fish oil counter the negative effects of eating too much omega-6 in one meal?
Okay. The first part of the question. The ratio for olive oil from omega-6 to omega-3 differs on which olive oil you buy. What season that the olives are grown on, whether it's refined olive oil or extra virgin olive oil. Some olive oil could be as high as 20% linoleic acid, which is the polyunsaturated omega-6 that's found in olive oil. So generally your good EVOO, extra virgin olive oil, should run you about 10% linoleic acid. So if most average person, you should never cook with olive oil first off. You should only, add it to your food after preparation, especially for the rich flavor. But let's say the average person puts about 2 tablespoons of EVOO in the food that they're eating. So that'll run you about 3 grams of linoleic acid, which is about as much as using lard or eating the fatty parts of chicken. So it's not too terribly bad. So out of all the oils that you can consume, minus saturated fat oils like coconut oil, for example, but most of the plant oils, EVO has so many benefits with its consumption that outweigh the little bit of omega-6, that you're going to get with it, compared to a lot of other oils like soybean oil, for example, which is god-awful horrible, and corn oil, So, it's definitely worth your time eating EVO. Not every day. You don't want to eat it every day, but every few days, getting 2 tablespoons of it is good. Unless you have direct Italian heritage, then, since that was more, olives were very part Italian, even Greek diets, you might get away with being able to consume more EVO on a regular basis, genetically. But, second part of the question, I would lean more towards increasing overall omega-3 consumption in food by eating, like wild-caught sardines, wild-caught flounder, wild-caught salmon, oysters, instead of taking fish oil. But if you did increase your fish oil supplementation as well to offset the omega-6, it can help too. I suggest, of course, Jason also suggests using calamari oil. Doctors Best has a good DHA brand of calamari oil. Myself personally, I take 1 capsule of calamari oil a day and 2 capsules of Ultimate Omega, which is triglyceride bound in fish oil. And I've been trying to increase my intake of fish more. So, it is important that you do make sure that you get your omega-3s to offset omega-6 as much as you possibly can. And I would eat it throughout the day. I wouldn't take it all at one time, even if you're going to have a high omega-6 meal. It's better to take, some of your fish oil or some fish consumption during that meal and, have it some, different part of the day too. So, studies have also shown that, you want to make sure that your highest DHA consumption is in the morning. So if you are going to take your fish oil or eat, seafood, it's best to do it in the morning. But olive oil itself has a lot of other benefits other than just, having somewhat healthy fats, the majority of it being monounsaturated oleic acid. It contains polyphenols, which do have great benefit in the human body, olive purine being one, which has antibacterial, antimicrobial properties, as well as it inhibits the oxidation LDL cholesterol, and increases nitric oxide expression within our cells. So that's why olive purine has been shown to help with cardiovascular disease and lowering of blood pressure. So it can be very helpful. Olive purine and consumption of olive oil is why it's been tied into heart health. Another polyphenol is hydroxytrisol, which of course is covered extensively in Fix Your Mitochondria because it increases mitochondrial biogenesis and phase 2 detoxification enzyme systems within our mitochondria. So it might be a possibility that olive oil consumption, among many things, might be why people in the Mediterranean region, people in the Mediterranean diet live longer, because they have, better mitochondrial health, which helps to deal with the aging process.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds plausible. It could also be genetic too.
Could be.
Nobody knows.
But I'm talking about as far as environmental factors are concerned. If you're worried about the omega-6 that's in EVO, don't, because olive oil has so much more positive things in it to increase your health that you should not be avoiding it just because it has a little bit of omega-6 in there. I'm pretty sure you would agree with that, Jason.
Yeah, why would you say not to take all of it in one dose though? Because
talk about fish oil, for example.
No. The olive oil.
No, the olive oil is fine to eat all at one time.
Oh, okay.
The fish oil, I would break it up through the day and get most in the morning. The EVO is fine to eat all in one meal.
Well, I was going to say, because I usually inject it all at one time because I don't eat it. I want it to get it IV because it's better.
Good way to get it straight into. But
well, it's the best way to mix with my veterinary grade trenbolone that I ordered from South America.
It's good stuff. It gets you good and amped up. So.
Yeah, gets me a good, it gives me a little bit more energy in the gym.
But I mean,
I don't actually lift weights when I go to the gym, though.
No, of course you get very stacked.
People and I yell, I'm like, yeah, I clap sometimes.
You pumped like Hans and Franz.
But I do. No, I'm just joking. I don't take that.
No, but I mean,
trend. Please don't do that. That's ridiculous. Eat your olive oil. Don't inject it.
Jason would agree with me. Don't cook with olive oil. If it's the only thing you have in your house to cook with as far as a fat is concerned, it would be a lot better for you to, except for extra virgin if it was refined.
Or like motor oil or something.
It'd be better for you to cook with that than like canola. But I still would not cook with it as much as possible. Don't put extra virgin olive oil in the refrigerator. It's going to make it taste bad. A lot of the polyphenols are just, it's going to enhance the bitterness of the oil. Which some people might love, but most people, it's just not going to make it taste very well. So just try to keep it in a dark container in the dark somewhere in the darkest part of your house, maybe like the wine cellar in the basement or something like that.
I like the taste of the bitters.
So you keep it in the refrigerator?
Oh, I love it, man. I like it. If you've ever had like fresh lettuce coming out of the garden, it also has that same taste. It tastes so good, and it pairs really well.
I will say that for olive oil, source matters. So I'd, get it organic, extra virgin, first pressed as much as possible. I actually buy one that's first pressed from Italy, that's organic. That I can just tell by the richness of the oil how well it tastes. Usually, you can tell if you're getting cheap extra virgin olive oil if it just doesn't have a rich, bitter taste to it.
I don't get any olive oil from Italy. I get all mine from California.
Yeah, I know. That's where you get yours from.
Because there's a lot of fraud with the Italian market. It's
that is
documented
true.
that there's
that's why you want to make sure if you get an Italian oil.
If you want to watch The Sopranos, it's kind of like a romanticized deal about what the Italian mafia does, but in real life, they just take olive oil and they cut it with corn oil and they sell it to you.
That's true. But and
that's why when you look at the studies, sometimes you'll look at the omega-3 to 6 ratio, and some of the studies will show that there's olive oil out there that has 0 omega-3, so 0. So
that's why you want to make sure that, because olive oil does have at least, I think, a 1% ALA content. It's very small, but it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very much. It's not a significant source of linoleic acid for sure.
But I mean, Jason's right. Try to get it from America. I believe the brand that I use is not adulterated with corn oil or anything like that, just based off the taste alone.
Yeah. I think though it's kind of a fallacy that if you like to compensate your diet, like I ate too much. Let's say I broke down and I went out and I ate French fries, which is loaded with omega-6, right?
Acrylamides would be what I'd be more worried about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's say like you just consumed 30 to 60 grams of omega-6, and you're like, okay, well, I got to make my ratio even out, so I'm going to take 30 to 60 grams of fish oil or something. I mean, there's people that do this, and just because they're looking at the ratio. I think that's kind of a fallacy, because you don't want to eat. You want to eat PUFA very sparingly, and you want to get strong sources of DHA and EPA. And so the source that you get your polyunsaturated fats, it matters. It actually matters. And if you eat actual seafood, you're getting it from, you're getting the oils from the animal, where even though the animal's deceased, it still has, it's still being protected by a lot of the tissues. And when it was alive, it had the redox, it had its detoxification enzymes intact and so forth. And so it's just a better way to consume it. Whereas if you get it, the one thing that concerns me about getting supplemental form of DHA is, is it still good? Has it been oxidized? Is it
Correct.
compromised? So that's why I think it's better to get it from your seafood if you can. But I mean, really, I don't think many people are doing that. I don't think people are getting enough. So that's why we recommend that people supplement, because you got to eat a lot of seafood. I mean, you can't just be like, okay, I ate a can of sardines today. That's not going to cut it. And so, I would eat omega-6 very sparingly. Olive oil has some good benefits. Has some good polyphenols. It's really high in monounsaturated fatty acids.
You just gotta pick your poison. It's all about what it is. I mean, occasionally you're gonna fall into diet pitfalls and eat stuff that you're not supposed to eat. But it'd still be better for you to get omega-6 from olive oil than it would be from corn oil.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But like I said, don't overcompensate. So if you eat a bunch of omega-6, don't overcompensate with the omega-3. I think that's kind of folly there. All right, the next question is, okay, could you discuss what damages proteins? Whey protein seems to be a special case here, as far as I can tell, i.e. denatured whey protein is not good, is it? Whereas food proteins such as meat and fish will naturally be denatured during the digestion process, for example. And doesn't cooking, applying acids like vinegar, lemon juice denature proteins as well? So denatured protein does not equate to damaged protein, does it? Unless it's whey protein or dairy protein. Okay, so gonna go into, I made some really cheap visual aids to talk about what's going on here.
It's awesome.
We're gonna do some biochemistry.
It's awesome.
All right.
I'm ready to do it.
Proteins are made of amino acids, and amino acids are formed together. You have an amino acid. Let's say this is going to be we're going to link two amino acids here. Let's say we're linking arginine to glutamic acid right here. Now, these amino acids are going to have the amine and the carboxyl backbone, and they're going to connect together. So when an amine connects to a carboxyl, we're going to get what's called a peptide bond, and it's going to yield water. So water is going to yield from it, and we're going to get a bond that's not really that strong. Okay, so it's like a bond, but it's kind of staying together right here. But it can come apart pretty easily through hydrolysis. So if it's in water, then and Without enzymes, it's going to take a really long time for it to happen, but
it'll eventually happen.
It's going to come apart. But so we've got the amino backbone that's going through here, and we also have side chains. So the side chains that come down from right here, and well, let's use some of my son's crayons. So yeah, we'll have some side chains coming down, right? The side chain is what makes one amino acid different from the other, and they all have different properties, and some are charged, some are not charged, some are hydrophobic, and so that's how we do it. But when you put proteins in a blender, and shake it around, we get what's called shearing force, and the shearing force goes, and guess what happens? It's enough to separate this bond because it's somewhere between 4 to 8 kilocalories of energy to separate it. It's not that much. Now, from your can you see this, John? Is this showing up?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Because I'm not looking at the camera right now. So if we're when the amino backbones, let's say the carbon to carbon, like this is carbon-carbon going down, separate a carbon-carbon, we're talking about like 88 kcals to separate that kind of bond. And carbon to hydrogen, separate that covalent bond, that's going to be about 100 kcals. So much more difficult to do this way than this way. So that's just, so you're saying, okay, well, if I put my whey protein in the blender, is that bad? Because all the, there could be chance of proteins getting separated and so forth. And then other people are like, yeah, but that's what's happened in the digestion process also, because pepsin is going to form peptides as well.
That's correct.
And so, yeah. So let's look at this from a different perspective, okay? So I have this right here, which is a graphical representation of 2 tripeptides. So we have this right here. R is arginine, and then E is glutamic acid right here. So they're they represent different positive and negative charges. Positive charge, negative charge. So in 2D space, we flip this around, and what's it going to do? Like what's going to happen? It's not just going to stay right here because we have the side chains are going to interact with one another, and they're going to want to form hydrogen bonds. So boom, what happens? It ends up looking like this in 2D space. So these are already bound through the amino backbone, and there's not going to be enough repelling force to separate those bonds. But what's going to happen is that you're going to start to form hydrogen bonds here because we got positive and negative interaction. Okay. So then what if we have something a little different? What if we alternate them? And we've got, we've got arginine, glutamic acid all the way down. Well, what's going to happen here? Well, boom. Is that the right way? Okay, yeah. Boom. A circle O protein, right? And we can really calculate very well how amino acids are going to react in 2-dimensional space. It's very easy. And the theory holds up pretty well. Unfortunately, it's a 3-dimensional world that we live in, and predicting what's going to happen there is a lot more unpredictable. And we have like supercomputers that are working on trying to figure out a way to predict how proteins will fold in 3-dimensional space. But this isn't going to work. Like the protein's going to end up looking something like this. It's going to be all crazy. And so let's just look at an example in nature of what's going to happen. So let's say that this is type A hemoglobin. This is a type A hemoglobin protein with 2 beta chains of A2. And let's say that there's been a polymorphism in this protein, and that the 6th amino acid in this protein, so as it's encoding the protein, the 6th position, it's been substituted from glutamic acid, which, as we found out here, is negatively charged, to valine, which is hydrophobic. So we ended up having this nice helix here, but since it's valine, it's going to change the shape of this protein. So this is going to flatten out. Is this as stupid as I think it is, John? Is this really dumb?
No, I'm paying attention to you. I mean,
Okay.
You got me riveted.
Like, this is, I didn't take any classes on origami.
You got me riveted. I'm just,
Okay, good. So now this is.
I'm wondering where like advanced glycation end products are going to fit into this. I mean, you're going to have to get to them eventually, right?
Well, it's going to turn. Look, John, it's turning into a beta pleated sheet.
Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
You're doing a good job.
Beta-pleated sheath. John's like, why does this matter? Who cares? Well, this is what's called sickle cell anemia because it looks like a sickle now. I always thought the sickle was like the Grim Reaper guy.
You did a good job. Which sickle cell anemia was a defense against malaria, so.
It is. That's why it's been passed on, is because for sickle cells, the malaria virus can't reproduce. And so this allows people to get to reproductive age, which is why in warmer climate areas like the sub-Saharan Africans, places in India, places where we have these tropical, well, not, I would say tropical climates, but these places where malaria is more common, this gene is very prevalent. So where I'm getting with this whole thing is that a substitution of a certain protein can be a big difference in expression and function. So if we take this back and let's say it's a different enzyme all of a sudden, and this is a functional enzyme, so it's going to contain these little tiny pockets, and because of the composition of the amino acids in these little pockets, molecules are keyed to fit in there, and they have the exact charge and shape necessary to fit in these pockets so that it can act as a catalyst for biochemical reactions. So these little molecules are going to fit in here, and the enzyme is going to stabilize the molecule so that it can, a chemical reaction can be performed more efficiently. Enzymes just increase the speed of which things are occurring.
Okay, so let me get it just real quick. Okay, when I'm grasping layman's terms of what you're saying. Okay.
Okay.
We have proteins.
Yeah.
And it's bad when proteins become misshapen.
Yeah, it's bad.
Because enzymes can't work on those proteins any longer, and they start forming stuff that the body can't handle very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's part of it, and part of the denaturing process. Let's say that we get a glycanation, like you were just talking about earlier.
Glycation end products, where the body's like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it doesn't actually ask that because.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you know what I mean.
The body that has intelligence is the conscience. So the body won't actually be like, what? And it won't start sending like emoji to your brain like.
But okay, we'll talk about acrylamide, for example, which is is when you fry starchy foods. Now, man hasn't fried starchy foods, for a very long period of time throughout history. So now the body's dealing with all these acrylamide proteins, and it's like, I don't know. Okay, the enzymes don't break it down properly because it doesn't know how to break down the protein, correct? Well, or the advanced glycation end product, should I say?
Yeah, we could get into another tangent on acrylamide and how that works, but with acrylamide, with a glycolipid, it looks like, and there are other glycolipids in the body, and sometimes they can be, and sometimes they can have the same property. Like for instance, if you say, well, okay, calcium and magnesium in the body have the same valence, and if we consume more calcium and less magnesium, we end up with problems because calcium starts being substituted for magnesium. So what happens when an acrylamide is being substituted for a functional glycolipid that we actually need? But we could take a functional enzyme, and also the same process occurs. If we attach a carbohydrate to it, it can really mess things up as well.
You can make it really look very malshapen, and stuff like that. That's what advanced glycation end product is, right?
Yes. So through heating, if you superheat or microwave, if you microwave this stuff, that's with a carbohydrate, that's where it's going to be happening the most. Right. So if you batter and fry your fish instead,
it makes it delicious.
Yeah, I mean, who could argue with that? Except, I don't know, maybe a person without taste buds. But,
a robot.
Yeah, it's gonna create problems. So now, when proteins, let's go back to my really low budget visual aid here. So, and other things that can change, like they're talking about acids and how do acids change protein shape. Well, some of these amino acids and some of the folds only happen in certain pH. Like you could take the conversion of pepsidase to pepsin, for instance, or pepsin
Correct.
to pepsidase. And it's like, okay, well, this was like this, but now that we're in a lower pH environment, oh, it starts to fold, and then now it's like it's like breaking down proteins like crazy.
In the stomach, and then when it gets into the small intestine, bicarb, raises the pH, and it turns back into pepsinogen, becomes inactivated, so it doesn't digest your intestines.
Yeah, but like, and then so we talk a lot about theory, and it's always good to start with theory. Like I was talking to a really excellent violin maker. I mean, one of the top violin makers in the world, and he reproduces instruments, and he can refinish instruments that can contend with like Guarnelli, Stradivarius. I mean, unbelievable mind. And there are charts and diagrams that say, this has to be this thickness and this has to be this tension. And he says, yeah, it's really good to start with theory, and I know the theory very well, but there's always a disconnect between theory and practice. And so we get these people that are really into the theory of these of biochemistry, and then when we turn it into practice, it's not always as severe as we think. So glycation, if you fry your foods, that is actually a big deal. If you cook your meat instead of eating it raw, it's going to have a very minimal impact, because
at a low temperature.
Yeah, the meat's going to cook. Yeah, and is it going to damage some of the proteins?
Yes.
Yeah, it will.
But it's better than eating raw meat, though.
Yeah, if it's scored and it's creating different nitrosamines, that's going to be bad. And the reason why that's bad actually is because it has a really negative impact on the gut.
Talking about grilling.
Yeah, I mean grilling to where you're charring stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's not charred, if you just cook it where it's fine, and there's not really a big deal with that, and it doesn't really damage the fats that much either. In clinical practice, you'll see that it just doesn't. And so
it's a lot healthier for you without getting sick to make sure you cook your meat.
Yeah, blending your whey in a blender
is not going to.
It's like negligible. I mean, yeah, some crazy stuff might happen, but the probability and the degree. I mean, you want to talk about if we want to, I don't know, do we want to go into? I mean, Cruz isn't going to be on the show until Saturday, but like possibly if I try to clap my hands don't necessarily have to clap. There's a chance that my hands could pass through one another because my hands don't actually touch. It's just van der Waals forces that are keeping my hands.
Now you're going into quantum mechanics now.
So like I could just be like, whoa, did you see that? It happened. Well, that's about the same probability of you getting dangerous proteins by blending. And the tripeptide expression that's going on the stomach, that's a completely different show where we talk about like how much nonsense it is. They have this chart of like protein quality that they came out with for these developing nations on like, oh, we need to get them better protein because they're eating too much of this. And, it's like, oh, if you combine beans and rice, you get all the amino acids you need to live. Well, both beans and rice already have the amount of amino acids you need to live. It's not like collagen where it's missing tryptophan or something ridiculous. But anyway, the combination of amino acids and the way that they're encoded and they're broken down into tripeptides, that does have an impact on genetic expression. So if the way these are broken down, if these are broken off right here, it's going to have different genetic implication than if it goes like right two glutamic acid, one arginine, or one arginine, two arginine, one glutamic acid, or all three. They're all going to have different. Implications. Let's see. Denatured protein. Denatured protein is kind of a buzzword. It just means that it's no longer natural. So what they're really talking about is like glycation, not necessarily like, oh, it's in a different shape now because it's in different acid. Well, guess what? There's a lot of acid in your stomach too.
Yes, there is.
Let's just move on to the next question. We spent a lot of time on that. I know John doesn't recommend long-term use of antimicrobials because they possibly kill good bacteria. So does that mean that coconut oil should not be taken every day because it's a very strong antimicrobial?
Okay. First off, you shouldn't be eating the same foods on a daily basis. So no one should be eating coconut oil on a daily basis unless absolutely necessary. Like someone has a seizure disorder and they're on a ketosis diet and they're requiring MCT oil, which isn't even coconut oil in the first place. But so nonetheless, So you shouldn't be eating coconut oil every day on a daily basis anyway. The same where I just had mentioned extra virgin olive oil, you shouldn't be eating olive oil on a daily basis as well. Of course, Jason and I can get into seasonal eating too and stuff like that, but still nonetheless, just based off of that, you should not be eating coconut oil every day. Now, is coconut oil a very strong antimicrobial agent? It can be. Lauric acid, which is a 12-carbon saturated fat that's found in coconut oil. It's also found in breast milk. And the body takes lauric acid and it turns it into monolaurin. Now, monolaurin has very strong antimicrobial properties in the body, and the body has very minute amounts of monolaurin. It's very beneficial for infants to get monolaurin production through breast milk because it does help fend off diseases and infections in infants. It's very, very, very helpful for children. So it's not a direct antimicrobial action of lauric acid itself. The body has to turn it into monolaurin and use it wherever it's needed in the body for the antimicrobial effect to occur. Now, coconut oil also has caprylic acid in there too, which is an 8-carbon saturated fat. Which caprylic acid itself does have antibacterial and anti-yeast properties without the body having to turn it into anything directly. So every time you ingest extra virgin olive oil or even extra virgin coconut oil, is it possibly harming some of your good bacteria flora? Yes. It's also possible that it's also coming in contact and eliminating a negative that you ingest on a daily basis as well too. The best thing about the gut is if you have a healthy gut, it's going to be very minimal. Even though it's a very strong, antibacterial, antimicrobial agent, doesn't necessarily mean you're thinking it in terms of using an antibiotic, which would carpet bomb, the body, depending on, we'll take rifaximin, for example, which only mainly works in the small intestine because it requires bile for activation. So rifaximin is very potent in the small intestine. It will eliminate small intestine bacteria as long as they're not resistant to it, which rifaximin has low resistance. Unless the bacteria is encased in biofilm, for example, it might have a better chance of surviving. But coconut oil is not the same, where it's not like you're ingesting something very potent that will constantly eliminate your bacteria or yeast that it comes in contact with very strongly. I'm pretty sure Jason would agree with me on that point. I just wouldn't suggest that you eat it every day. But just based off the fact that you should be eating the same foods on a daily basis anyway. But I don't think it's not, you're looking at it in terms of effectiveness, and it's not the same as using an antibiotic.
All right. We got time for a couple more questions. The next one is, can you recommend more options to support autophagy besides fasting? So what autophagy is, it's a catabolic process of where your cells are broken down. And I guess the goal of autophagy is for detox. It helps with detoxification. So that there are certain amino acids that lead to, that start to upregulate the mammalian target of rapamycin, specifically branched chain aminos like leucine, but also like glutamine, methionine, lysine, arginine, threonine, isoleucine. They all seem to, like when taken in significant amounts, they all seem to block that process. Exercise also seems to block that process also. So heat adaptation is a good way of stimulating autophagy. But the problem is when it's paired with exercise, they cancel each other out. And so no, they don't cancel each other out. So like if you exercise, your detox pathways shut down because your body's using all of its energy for glycination, and so you're using your energy to move the weight around or whatever you're doing to exercise. Maybe you're moving people around. It doesn't matter. But so if you work out and get really hot, that's not going to affect your detox pathways in the same way it would be to like go to a sauna and just relax and stay calm. So that's one thing. Ketogenic diets have been shown to support autophagy because they're also low in protein and carbohydrate. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's also been shown to increase mTOR. So when you're stressed out, it's going to block your autophagy process. So it's better to not have heightened levels of cortisone, like if you're unbelievably stressed out all the time or whatever, or if you're doing things to your body that stress you out, which also would include fasting. It would block your ability to detox. There are medications like metformin and aspirin that have been shown to help with autophagy, but I don't recommend either one of those. Omega-3s have been shown to help with the detox process, and that also doesn't seem to affect your lean body tissue, so it won't break down your muscle quite as much, so that would be a good one. Polyphenols are excellent. There's a lot of polyphenols out there to choose from. I'm not going to go over all of them. DIM is really good for that. Alcohol will actually block that process, obviously, because it's it puts pressure on your liver, but it's also been shown to increase testosterone levels in small amounts, which is interesting. And that's pretty much, like, from a supplement standpoint, those are some of the things that you can do as well. But I really recommend like heat adaptation. Just heat stressors seem to really do well for that, and it seems to be independent of having to stress yourself out by fasting. If you want to do intermittent fasting and stuff, that might be a good way to do it, but like long-term 5-day water fasting, I'd stay away from that. All right, next question. I guess this is the last one we're going to have time for today. To follow up on low FODMAP carb sources, what about just plain organic corn syrup, not high fructose corn syrup? From what I'm researching on corn syrup, its primary sugar is glucose. So wouldn't it be okay on a low FODMAP? I've tried different dextrose brands. Now dextrose comes from GMO corn, and I'm having an allergic reaction to organic dextrose from True Nutrition. I think it might be cross-contaminated with soy. I get rashes when I eat it. Just looking for a good, clean glucose source.
Okay. Well, corn syrup itself does have glucose in it, of course, but majority of it's maltose, which is a disaccharide. It's made up of 2 glucose bonds. So would it feed bacteria? More than likely not. Do I suggest its use? No. I would suggest more of using just well chewed up jasmine rice or red potatoes to mix with the amylase, just because corn syrup itself, even if it's organic, it's still just, I do believe in the ingestion of organic corn, especially blue corn, but just using the corn syrup itself, just because of the stripping. I'm pretty sure hexane, unless it says hexane free, it might be used in the production of the corn syrup and the solvents as well. I would just try to find a dextrose that you do not react to. Would be my best guess. I just don't recommend the organic corn syrup, even though you are right that technically it is mostly glucose. If you do use it, I would just make sure that you mix around your saliva very well before swallowing it, just to break down some of those bonds. But other than that, I would not recommend the use of corn syrup over pure powdered dextrose.
Yeah, I mean the M in FODMAP stands for monosaccharide, and glucose is a monosaccharide. So glucose is not a low FODMAP source. But I think don't misunderstand what the FODMAP diet is.
It's not. You're right. It's not a low FODMAP source, but your body will absorb it. Hopefully, before the bacteria will absorb it in your small intestine.
Yeah, and again, it just depends on where your bacterial overgrowth is, and if it's in, if it's, mouth, throat, stomach area, then your mono and disaccharides are really going to fuel that.
Correct.
And if that's the case, you should be eating like rice instead. But the FODMAP diet, they're not saying like don't eat any FODMAPs ever.
Just low FODMAPs.
Low FODMAPs, and you're supposed to figure out what FODMAPs are setting you off.
Correct.
And there's a way that you eat to kind of figure out what they are.
Which we can discuss that another. It depends on fermentation potential. What usually has a higher fermentation potential, and when certain things are fermented in the body, like glucose, like Jason, for example. Dextrose should be absorbed rapidly by the stomach. It should not reach the small intestine. But if you did have an upper gastro infection, you would not want to ingest pure dextrose. So low FODMAP. FODMAP diet doesn't mean no FODMAP. It just means low fermentable potential, pretty much, or low FODMAP, so that they are not fermented in the small large intestine.
Yeah, I mean the fermentables, the fermentable starches. That's what the F stands for in FODMAPs, and we have to understand that the fermentation process is used we use the fermentation process as well. It's a part of basic metabolism, and so we can't say that okay, there's no fermentation going on. It's just a type of metabolic process that happens in a oxygen restricted environment. So I think it's kind of, we just need to get a better grasp on what the FODMAP diet is, and use it the right way. And
Correct.
If
I agree,
and then say like, okay, well, I'm sensitive to starches, or I'm sensitive to oligosaccharides, or whatever, polyols. Just figure out what is messing you up and avoid that. Don't avoid all 5 FODMAPs. I mean, it's impossible. Well, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's very. I mean, you'd be basically a carnivore if you're trying to do that. It's not what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, you're like, okay, well, yeah, no FODMAP diet. I'm just not going to eat anything, and I'm just going to starve out my bacteria that way. Is that going to work? Can we do that? I'm not going to eat for 4 weeks. I'm just going to drink water. And,
I'm pretty sure you'll die or get very sick.
Well, pretty sure. Do you have any studies on that? Because I'm going to do it just for the fun of it.
I mean, you're right.
I'm going to kill every living thing in my body except me, and that's going to be a good idea. No,
but I mean, you're right. I mean, it's just about seeing what sets you off. And for most people, glucose does not make their overgrowth worse.
Yeah, if they had like H. pylori or if
it would make it worse.
Infection, yeah, it would jack them up. Yes. But yeah, I mean, let's get a handle on the FODMAP diet, figure out what we're sensitive to. If you're not sensitive to monosaccharides or disaccharides, then it doesn't really matter from a FODMAP point of view, it doesn't matter if you're eating fructose or glucose. Now, from a wellness and nutrition point of view, if you're in a hypercaloric environment and you're eating lots of fructose, so there's a lot of studies showing that that's not good. And a lot of people prefer to eat more glucose than fructose anyway, just because it's a better thing to do. People look at the fructose.
But generally in people with SIBO, you want to use low fermentable potential carbohydrates, and glucose happens to be one of the lowest.
Yeah, I guess that's why they put the F first.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. and we won't be doing a drawing today for the stuff. So sorry, but as soon as they figure out everything on Upgrade itself, we'll do a drawing and we'll send that out to you guys. So apologize for the delay on that. And thanks for watching. Don't forget Jack Cruise on Saturday morning. If you can watch that, that'll be a good show. And if you can't make it, we'll be posting these on the YouTube stream. So have fun, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care.